Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to the channel. Um, Megan here, the faithful fibromyalgia warrior. One of the things that I really wanted to just quickly touch on, I don't know that this will be a long stream, it might be very short, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was the fact that carnivore doesn't cure everything. It doesn't. For example, if you have been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and you decide to eat a carnivorous diet, there is a possibility that you may slow down the speed at which your disease progresses. But I would never claim to say that by eating carnivore, you are going to all of a sudden reverse your cancer status. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it will work. I have no idea, but I'm not going to promise it will. And sometimes it's easy to think, well, if I don't have all of the complete um, remission of everything right away, if I'm still struggling with some symptoms or conditions, even though I've been carnivore, and I mean, I'm talking about for more than 6 months, okay? Because any less than that, I don't think you're going to necessarily see enough of a transformation anyhow if you're talking about something that's long term, like if you've had acid reflux, GERD, if you've been dealing with IBS or chronic inflammation, whether it's irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel syndrome or colitis or anything like that. Yes, I do think that eating a carnivorous diet is going to be extremely helpful. And you know what? They're not having had, I mean, I live with IBS, although I'm almost symptom free. I do live with IBS. But I know just from watching videos and hearing lectures by Dr. Anthony Chafee, who has treated patients himself, where he has recommended a carnivorous or at least a ketogenic approach to eating, and that has seen a great, if not a great reduction in the symptoms of ulcerative colitis. It is actually in many cases reversed, so that surgery was actually avoided. So I know that he talks about some actually case studies or actual patients that he has treated where they followed the protocol and it has reversed that condition. I would still say clearly it would not have happened overnight, and perhaps not even within a couple weeks. I don't recall the exact time, but it was, I believe it was at least a month of eating that way to see any sort of changes. But those are sort of, so sorry, the point being that yes, going carnivore, and in my case, when I'm like full carnivore, when I'm eating animal meats and egg yolks and, you know, sticking to that as far as my food goes, I feel way better. And it makes sense because the meat of ruminant animals is not been shown to cause any sort of adverse allergic reactions in people that we're aware of. I knew somebody who had claimed that she did not eat red meat because she was allergic, and she would try to eat lamb or beef and she would start to get hives. Now, I know she said that she would like make it super spicy. She's her family, I think, is, if I remember correctly, are Jamaican born. And so she's used to eating with a lot of hot spice. And so all her food would be very spiced for her. But she would also eat her meat with lots of vegetables. And I wasn't there. I didn't see it happen, but I suspect, just my personal opinion, I would imagine that it was not the meat itself that was causing her the issue. It was either the seasoning she put on it, and or the vegetables she ate along with the meat. So she's vegetarian. She will eat chicken sometimes. She likes meat, she said, but um, she finds that if she eats it, it causes her issues, mind you, like I say. But then when the meat she was eating was covered in gravies or sauces or seasonings. And so I think perhaps that was the issue. I don't know if there are even any known cases of someone being allergic to ruminant animal meat. I don't even know if studies were done. But usually, when people cut back to just red meat and salt and water, whether that's steak, whether that's ground beef, whether that's somewhere in between, it's because they've had to eliminate everything else from their diet. And this is what they're left with. And so that's why I kind of wonder um, if, in fact, she was just maybe sensitive to whatever she put on the meat, hypersensitive, perhaps. Uh, who knows? But sorry, it's a bit of a, I'm going a bit off topic. What I wanted to say was that eating either beef or lamb or any other ruminant, so just in case you don't know what that means, it's any animal that has that has more than one stomach and can therefore fully um, digest and process grasses, seeds, cellulose, oats, grains, all of that. And it is fully converted. It is either excreted as waste, and whatever's left when it's absorbed is converted into muscle mass and protein on the animal and helps them grow, their organs or those sorts of things. Um, which is why there is a very, very high chance that if you have sensitivities to other things, that eating ruminant animal meat, such as lamb and beef, or bison, or oxen, or venison, or whatever you can come by where you live, those things are less likely to cause you issues than if you are eating poultry or pork, who are fed grains mostly. And because they only have one stomach like we do, they don't have the ability to fully break down seeds and grains as the ruminants do. And so whatever they don't excrete gets absorbed into their body. But basically, when you're eating poultry and pork, you're eating trace amounts of whatever seeds, grains, grasses, cereals they ate. So if you're super sensitive, you're going to react, right? Which is why, I can do a little bit of sausage now and then. I seem to be okay with bacon, but anything else causes me issues. It makes me feel unwell. The roof of my mouth starts to feel a bit itchy, typically, and I get bloated and I don't digest it very easily, it would appear. And the same thing for me with poultry. I get the same reaction. If I eat it, I'll enjoy it in the moment, and then usually within half an hour, I'm feeling bloated. My IBS is horrible. My skin starts to feel itchy. My wrists start to get achy and swollen. Yeah. So clearly, I don't do well with a lot of either of those things. I will eat either one. If it's the only thing we have in the fridge for whatever reason, I would probably eat that. Although if I'm faced with either, like say, making up a pork chop or cooking up chicken, not that we really don't buy that much anymore ever at the butcher's. My husband is kind of not really super keen on either of those things. They're not filling enough. He's kind of fallen out of love with pork and poultry. But if it's lamb or like say brisket or steak or ground beef, meatballs, meatloaf, chili, whatever, anything like that, yes, please, all day, every day. Not a problem. Okay. Total sidebar there. Sorry. What I was going to say is that even if you've eliminated everything else out of your diet other than the muscle meat of large and ruminant animals and water and salt, and for a period of time, I cut out coffee. I mean, other than this last attempt I made an attempt over a year ago, and I did go without coffee for about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. Okay. Now, my point that I'm getting to is that some conditions will not necessarily or don't seem to necessarily cure, or if they do not cure quickly. Now, when I was assessed for fibromyalgia, uh, I was seen by rheumatologists 4 different times. 3 of them, they performed blood tests, and others checked my symptomology. They were trying to rule out rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and chronic fatigue syndrome, which they did because my complaint was I was tired only because I was in so much discomfort and so much pain that I couldn't sleep at night properly. I couldn't fall asleep. Now, I tell you what, when I decided I was going to try something different, you guys already have probably already heard my weight loss story. End of May 2020, I was at 200 pounds. Okay. And which is way more weight than my body needed. Certainly based on my age, my frame, the fact that I suffered a prolapsed disc in my lower back and I cannot lift heavy things. I cannot do any sort of bending and twisting. I am not supposed to work out at a gym, full stop. Now, in the background, my thyroid was no longer functioning properly. I ended up developing hypothyroidism, and I had to go on medication for that. I was on statins because they were worried. Now, the doctors were worried about my high LDL cholesterol, which, as I now know, really isn't that big a deal per se, because our brains need the cholesterol. But what was a concern was my triglycerides were twice what they should have been. They were abnormally high. And all of that because I was indulging now and then. I was having at least once a week, I was having a brownie or a cookie or something like that in my past. But I was also eating 4 or 5 pieces of fruit a day, thinking I was doing something healthy. And as it turns out, no, all that fructose had nowhere to go. My liver was overtaxed, and I was in the beginning stages of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Okay, just to put that in perspective. And of course, I was always exhausted because of my medication side effects. Plus, I didn't sleep very well at night because of my pain. And so, because I didn't sleep well at night, I was tired all day. I felt like I was a walking zombie. And that was before COVID. I barely had the energy to get up and shower and get dressed. And about the year before COVID hit, I had to have a care person come into my home and help me with showering and getting dressed because it hurt too much to do it myself. And usually my husband would be gone because of his work. And I wasn't going to ask my teenage sons to help with that. No, weird. So when I started keto and I started to see the weight come off, I did not notice any immediate changes. Okay. Now that was probably in my head. That was probably not the reality. But I would say about 3 weeks in, I was starting to feel having a little bit more energy. And that was new for me because I had not had that for a long time. I was either, in my earlier years, I was either constantly in fight or flight mode, binging, purging, restricting, and of course, restricting, not giving myself the nutrients I needed, not giving myself the energy that I required regularly, and damaging my metabolism. And eventually my thyroid got ruined. All kinds of horrible things happened. And even when I was sleeping, I never felt like I could sleep solidly because I was constantly worried, "Oh, what about the kids in school tomorrow, and I have to do this for work, and we have this to do after work," and it was just a constant moment of it was like I was stuck in chaos all the time. And when I started to go keto, about 3 weeks in, I did start to feel like I had a little bit more energy during the day. It was slow, it wasn't like it happened overnight. It was slow. And I thought, well, great. I'm starting to get some energy again. I guess that means I don't have to take medication for anything else ever. And of course, that's not the case. And there was that part of me that felt like, well, I must have failed because I still take my medications. And what I had to realize is that, you know what? If I'm taking them, that's okay. Like, not everybody should be coming off medications just because they're going keto or carnivore. I knew at that point in my life I needed the antidepressant. So even though I was feeling more positive and those dark moments would happen in spite of the medication, here's my improvement. I wasn't struggling with those thoughts as often. So the medication and clearing the crap out of my body helped. And I know there are some people out there who would have you believe that if you do carnivore right, that means that you do not need to take any medications ever again. Well, sometimes you do. And, you know, I remember when I had been about a year on carnivore and I just had an annual checkup. And my GP said, "Hey, look, your blood work's back. Everything's within the normal range. I see you've got it way under control. How's your pain?" And I said, "Well, my pain's actually it's there. I mean, it's always there, but I feel like I can live with it. I can manage it." And he said, "Okay, well, you know what? Let's keep doing what we're doing. Let's not change anything. Seems like you're doing well. Let me know if it changes." And I have not felt the need to change that. But I would feel for so often that, well, if I'm still taking my antidepressants and my pain medication, like I must have failed. I must have not done carnivore right. And you know what? I had to realize that's me. That's just me. So if you are on antidepressants or antipsychotics or anything for ADHD or bipolar disorder, anything for anxiety or depression, and it is helping you, please don't feel like you've failed at the carnivore diet simply because, you know what? You still take the medication. That's okay. That is okay. You know, and you know what? There might be a day where I feel like, I think I might try to cut down on my prescription levels or cut out my medication. But for right now, I feel amazing. And that and that was part of what I wanted to share today is that first of all, it's about what works for you. Yeah. So that's what works for me. That I know, for example, if I was to ever have a day where I slipped again on my carnivore approach to life, I don't see it happening. I don't plan for it to happen. But anybody who deals with food addictions or any type of recovery from an eating disorder knows, or any addiction knows, that there's always the possibility it could happen. We don't want it and we don't plan for it, but we might be in a situation where we make a poor decision. And I want to know that in that case, if I was to eat something that I know is going to cause me pain and agony later, that first of all, I can always go right back to carnivore as soon as possible. Second of all, that it doesn't mean I've failed, it means I've made a mistake, but at least I know that the medications are in my system and they will help me in the background. Because the thing is, right? It's a tricky thing. Um, Dr. Sarah Pugh, Pugh, she's brilliant. She's fantastic. She has been on Bart Kay's channel a couple of times. And her approach on how we eat and whether we should be taking medications or not, it's really amazing. And actually, if you watch that interview that she does with Bart, where he asks her about these things, it's really, really insightful. And I knew for me, when I asked my doctor for something, that I needed something to help me medically to calm down. I did not know anything about the carnivore diet. I didn't really know about keto other than my brother and his wife did it 8 years ago. And I think they're mostly paleo now. Um, but as far as the unrelenting, extreme anxiety that I was constantly feeling because I couldn't work anymore. I was in constant pain. My depression was worse than it had been in a long time because all of a sudden my life was changed. It was completely different. I do not even have a really cool story to go along with my prolapse disc injury. I don't. I wish I did. I wish I could say I was windsurfing in the Bahamas, or I was skiing in St. Moritz, or I was escaping some gang and trying to get info for MI5. No, none of that happened. I went into the tumble dryer. I leaned over and kind of twisted to pull out the clothes. And as I went to twist back up, that's when it bulged out. And I was like this, literally. It was like a Barbie doll folded over that could not straighten up without severe and agonizing and sharp pain. And even now, the right side of my pelvis is slightly higher than my left. So my pelvis is still a bit uneven because of the injury. It it wasn't impinging on the nerves, so they would not do any surgery, because which makes sense. The risk was far too great, right? The risk was too high. They sent me to pain management, which was useless. But anyways, that's a whole other conversation. Um, and that was back in March of 2014, the week before Mother's Day. That's how I remember Mother's Day from that year. Yeah. I could barely walk. I couldn't sit properly. It hurt to sit. It hurt to stand. It hurt to lay down. It hurt to move in any way. Now, I'm still sore if I sit for too long. So if I was to sit here for an hour without getting up at least once or twice, I would be in unbelievable pain. Like even now, I have a hard time standing up completely straight. In fact, I can't. I'm trying every day. I try to stand up a little straighter for a little bit longer, trying to stretch out the ligaments and tendons and all the stretchy bits. That's a medical term, by the way. All the stretchy bits in my lower back. So my sacroiliac joint, and connecting my sacrum with my pelvic bone and all the tendons that are in there. My hope is that if I can finally retrain my body to be upright with proper posture, then it may encourage that disc to start to retract a little bit. And it might ease some of the fibromyalgia pain. But because the SI joint is inflamed and irritated, it's really hard to do with success. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And the reason I will get to my point, which is I have far more energy than I did before, certainly more than I did 3 years ago. And definitely, because what happened for me at least was, as my conditions became diagnosed and worsened, everything else overall felt worse. Which I guess is a pretty normal thing. It's certainly in my case. Um, but I just remember thinking all the time, my lower back. I tried massage. I tried hydrotherapy, physiotherapy, occupational therapy. I tried getting a cortisol injection in my lower spine. And Moro no Brazil. Boa tarde. Oh, Edvaldo Dino. Hello. Welcome. So when I was starting to get all of these things diagnosed and they were giving me different medications, so I do gabapentin for the fibromyalgia pain because it's supposed to be a nerve blocker. And it does keep me from having the really painful, I used to get such painful muscle spasms and twitches in my legs and in my forearms. So that's helped that out. Doesn't mean I'm not sore. In fact, I'm feeling a bit achy now, but it's an improvement. And that's, being carnivore now for almost 2.5 years. So I'm hoping that if I can go I don't ever plan to change this, by the way, in case you wondered, but I'm hoping if I can carry on doing this over the next 10 years at least. Well, I'm 50. I had one grandma who lived to be 102 and another grandma who lived well into her early 90s. So I'm hoping those odds are in my favor, that I will live long, but that I will be healthy. And I'm hoping that everything will continue to improve. The thing is that I thought I was doing carnivore wrong because I was still tired. I would wake up with some energy, and then an hour later, I'd be exhausted and I'd pass out asleep on the sofa. Or I'd be awake briefly, and I would then have to go back and take a nap. So I thought I was doing something wrong. I thought, what's going on here? I've cleared all the stuff out of my system. I'm trying to get my sleep schedule right, which now it is, but I was working on, better patterns at night, blue blockers at night, to keep out the blue light when it's after dinner time. I eat within a couple of hours of waking up, and, which does signal the body that, hey, by the way, if there's food coming in, guess what? The melatonin stops, and it's time to start digesting the food and having it, get used where it needs to by the body. Fantastic. But I thought for the longest time that because I was still tired and because I still felt wiped and because I was still feeling sore, and I still needed to take my medications, that I was somehow doing carnivore wrong, because there are those out there who would have you believe that even whether you're doing lion diet carnivore, which is just meat, salt, and water, or you're doing carnivore where you're eating animal meats, maybe egg yolks, and a little bit of salt. And in my case, yes, I do include coffee, but that doesn't seem to be affecting me in any way. As far as being awake or not, when I get up in the morning now, I get up, I need to feed the dogs. And if I still feel like I might be tired, my test is this: I'll go back and lay in bed. And if I'm tired enough, I'll fall asleep pretty soon after. If I'm going to be awake anyways, then within 10 minutes, I'm still awake. I get up, get on with my day, right? So I'm trying to sleep when I can earlier in the day so that, it just helps with my circadian internal clock. So if I'm up at 6 to feed the dogs, I'm usually up for the day. I'm not tired enough to sleep. And I am, at this point, less the coffee, which I do limit, but less the coffee. I'm eating meat, egg yolks, bacon. Well, bacon is meat. So we'll start over. Beef, bacon, egg yolks, butter, and some coffee. And with a bit of salt. And yet, I still get tired during the day sometimes. And it was just today, I think, really, that I stopped and realized that, wait a minute, I've been dealing with exhaustion and sleep. I sleep great now. When I go to sleep at night, I sleep deep. I'm out, I think, within about 10 minutes. Um, our spaniel is always on the bed right beside me. So, he's my little heat source. Um, so if I'm usually asleep by 10, in bed just before 10, generally asleep by 10. Um, the dogs wake me up typically between 3 and 4 to go out, and then I get a few more hours of sleep once they're back in the house. So I do get a full night's sleep for the most part. Um, and I just realized that, wait a minute. Yes, I'm carnivore for almost 2.5 years. However, I've been dealing with unbelievable amounts of stress and cortisol, well, my whole life, but dramatically more in the last few years, as everybody has, getting through COVID, right? So I've been in fight or flight mode for so long, whether it was stress and anxiety over, you know, are my kids going to have their schoolwork done? Are they going to graduate? Will they do okay in life? What's this and that? As you do when your kids are younger. They're both grown adults now. They're independent, so that's one less worry. So of course, for me, I then worry about not worrying, right? Yeah, my brain. So I have been eating a carnivore diet, or been taking on a carnivore approach to eating. And yes, I've been adding in some coffee. Not gonna lie. Otherwise, it's animals and their products, right? So I'm still tired. And I felt guilty because I thought, well, I know part of it is the medication I take because drowsiness is a side effect. Although, after 8.5 years, my body's kind of used to it now. So that's not necessarily the factor. And then I remembered, but I still have fibromyalgia. I still have arthritis. I still have chronic musculoskeletal pain throughout my lower back and parts of my body. I still have some inflammation when I get stressed, but the other things are still there. So what is the cause? And I realized I have more energy. You know what? 3 years ago, if you had ever said, Megan, you are going to try to go on and share your story and hopefully help people on YouTube and make videos and do live streams and whatever, I would have said, you're nuts. I barely had the energy to even pick something to watch on television. Not a word of a lie. If something was on TV and I didn't want to watch it, I didn't care. I sat on the sofa, and unfortunately that meant I got exposed to a lot of sports that I really didn't care about, but happened to be on because my husband was watching tennis or ice hockey or whatever, and I could not be asked to pick something else. It was too much energy. I barely had the energy to get up off the sofa and get myself something to drink from the kitchen. And now I still feel tired at times, but I realized that doesn't mean I've done the carnivore diet wrong. This doesn't mean that I've failed at it. I think it probably means that I'm still dealing with my conditions, and that, as far as I can tell, that's kind of normal. And yet, here's the thing, right? I guess I wanted to say that, look, if you are finding that you are approaching keto or carnivore or low carb, um, and let's say you've tried it for a little while, but you still feel tired or you still have some of your symptoms or even a lot of your symptoms, that doesn't mean you've done it wrong. It doesn't mean you've done it wrong, okay, necessarily. And besides the fact, if you have far too much energy all the time, then I would think it's going to be more difficult at nighttime to actually get your body to settle and allow you to get that deep sleep. Um, Now, I speak when I say that, I think of my son who's almost 20, and certainly when he was a kid, and while he was still living at our house, he would be up till 5 o'clock in the morning because he couldn't sleep. He just had too much energy, too much going on in his mind, and then of course he would go to sleep at 5, but then he would sleep till 4 in the afternoon, right? So once he went back to Canada to start working, and he's a chef there now, but those those hours of his work, having to be up earlier and then work and whatever, that helped force him to readjust his sleeping schedule a bit. But even then, he could be up till 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning if he has work the next day. Um, which is an improvement from 5 in the morning, but he could be up till 1 or 2 and then, get up just in time to shower and get himself to work. And that for him, that's okay, right? So he's improving, but he still has said, like, I guess over the past couple of weeks, his sleep has been better, but he still has a really hard time falling asleep at night and cycling down. So, um, that's where I know that, and he was diagnosed at 18 with ADHD. And he'll be the first one to tell you that having too much energy for him is not always a good thing because he loses focus. He's bouncing from one thing to another and then so on and so forth. Right? Now, he is managing that. He's managing beautifully because he's at work, he's got schedule, he's got responsibilities, but he's a perfect example of how too much energy all the time is not a good thing, right? So I would just say, look, if you are finding it hard to sleep or to have deep sleep, and even if you sleep, maybe you're still feeling tired during the day, doesn't mean that you've got the food bit wrong at all. Actually, from what I understand, and you should check her videos out for more details, but Sally K. Norton, professor, I believe, who is a specialist in oxalates and how they affect our bodies and why they're bad. They contribute to things like kidney stones and other nastiness in the body. And one of the symptoms she describes is if you have too much, feeling tired all the time. Now, that is also a symptom of fibromyalgia. So, uh, definitely see a medical professional. That is not me. God did not make me a medical professional. I do not have the brains for that. I, with deepest respect, would refer to those who are experts, Professor Bart Kay, uh, Professor Sally K. Norton. Also, another great person who is very, very knowledgeable and learned is Professor Ben Bickman. They have great, he's more speaks to things on the insulin side of the picture. But again, if your blood glucose is out of whack and you're somewhere like I was, where perhaps you had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and you had to get your triglycerides under control and get the fructose out of your diet and all that other stuff, if that's something that you are also dealing with, he's a great resource. Really, really great. Very scientific, okay? So they're all really good. Oh, hello there, 19 Stony 64. Okay, well, that's so great to hear from you. Wow. Okay, so for me, what I have found is that I have more energy than I used to, but I still get tired. And I think it was a combination of things. First, um, the seed oils and the processed carbohydrates and sugar did me no favors at all. They did me no favors whatsoever. Not just from the fact of carrying 80 pounds of additional weight that my body did not need, and extra strain that I had on my joints, and the inflammation of my arthritis and in my back and everything else, all that other stuff. Eating that crap did me no good at all. Okay. And so I found my way to keto. And after a disastrous attempt at paleo, simply confirming the fact that I should not be eating nuts or seeds or grains or cereals of any kind, because my IBS and my leaky gut at the time, just constant irritators, those things. Okay. And plus the gluten I don't tolerate. It's not good for anybody. It really isn't. Whether you are allergic or not, it it is not helpful to the body. It's just not a good thing to consume in any amount. Um, but that a side point. So it was a frustrating time of being diagnosed with fibromyalgia because it was a year after my disc prolapsed in my lower back. And I knew that the stretches and all the exercises I was doing were not helping, were making everything worse. And I kept telling people it feels like there's this lump on the right side of my lower back next to my spine. And I think they looked at me like, oh, you're mental, you know, you're mental. Like, what are you talking about? And I eventually did get an MRI, and lo and behold, oh, your disc has prolapsed. It's almost touching the nerve, not quite, but enough to irritate it and inflame it and cause all this pain. So that was a year after. So they don't know if that injury is what set off the fibromyalgia, if I'd had it for a while, and then the injury simply made it worse. That nobody knows. That's the whole problem with it, right? Nobody knows. And so between the stress eating, the old, well, I'm in pain, I deserve a treat, the carbs, the sugars, all of that crap, which of course it tastes good. That's why we eat it. That's how the food companies get us, because they make the stuff taste good. And by the time we reached the end of May of 2020, my thyroid was demoed, my metabolism was shot. I was carrying an extra 80 pounds that was not helping me whatsoever. There was no additional pain medication I could get at all. None. I was on statins for my triglycerides and high cholesterol, but that's not such a big deal. And then we hit COVID, right? And I knew I needed to get rid of the weight. But somebody coming out of being bulimic for 35 years and constantly struggling with restriction and or binging and purging, you got to have a different mindset. I had already decided, I promised myself I was never going to do any sort of crash diet again, because I did those and it didn't work. But I knew I was not healthy. I was not at a weight that was healthy for me in any way. And I knew that I needed to treat my body better than I had been. But I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what that meant. So we tried paleo, disaster for me. And when I went on to YouTube, I remember some 6 or 7 years before that, I remember my brother and sister-in-law talking about being in ketosis and trying keto. She was trying to help either reverse or at least improve her arthritis symptoms. And I thought, oh, let me look into this. And so I did. And I didn't actually think anything was going to help, like at all. I honestly didn't. I was like, fine, I'll do it. It's my last resort, whatever. And lo and behold, I couldn't believe it. Within a week and a half, I lost like 8 pounds. I don't think I've ever lost that much weight at once, ever. Now, I suspect the majority of it was water weight, but hey, it was weight. I mean, ultimately, what I meant was I wanted to lose body fat, and then it could take all the water weight with it, right? And so with keto, when I learned, okay, keep my grams to total, keep my carbs to a total of 20 grams per day maximum, which could include a bit of dark leafy greens if I liked it, or non-starchy vegetables. And of course, that was easy to avoid because none of those things were good for the IBS. So I said, fine, I'll ignore that. Um, and to have limited amounts of dairy, butter, if I could tolerate it, bit of cream in my coffee, which after a few days I didn't enjoy. So I either drink it black or I have it with whole milk, typically. And even that I limit now. Couple of big cups a day. That's it. You know. And what I found as I was eliminating the garbage, as well as the natural starches and carbs, through vegetables and fruits, what I found, and I didn't even realize it immediately, but what I found at 19 Stony 64 was that as I did that, I was able to start remembering things again. Like I got my brain back. My goal, honestly, was to lose weight, and of course, that including fat, and maybe drop a size or two. So I wasn't even aware initially that I was starting to remember things again. Because I would imagine if you're like most of us with fibro, the fog is sometimes the hardest thing to deal with. You have conversations that you don't remember. 10 minutes later, that same person could come back and say, oh, by the way, did you do this, this, or that? Like we talked about. What do you mean we talked about? We didn't talk about this. Yes, we did. I think at the time, my husband was probably about this close to having to record all of our conversations because I literally couldn't remember them, even within 10 minutes of the conversation. Some things I might remember, but for the most part, I couldn't remember conversations. I couldn't remember what I'd said, what things I had told my kids. I couldn't remember if I'd said something or if I just thought I'd said something. And to me, that was scary because I thought, oh my goodness, I'm getting early Alzheimer's. I literally thought that was what was happening, that I was losing my short-term memory. And I even got referred to see somebody to see if that was the case. Now they came back and said, no, there's no sign of that. It is probably a sign of your fibromyalgia. So to go from that to say, oh, wow, wait a minute. Hey, I just remembered we talked about this 5 minutes ago, right? Like I didn't imagine this. Yeah, we talked about this. What about it? Oh, nothing. I can remember now. And to get that back was amazing. When I first started on this approach, and especially as I worked my way to full carnivore, which only took me a couple of weeks, I think, because for me at least, I knew I love vegetables. They do not love me back. I've never been able to eat them without consequence. It's just for years, I figured the consequence was worth it. Oh, wow. Yeah. Living in the fog. Wow. Yeah. I think we're probably not alone, which is really scary, And initially I had to push because at the time, yeah, I'm waiting. I'm trying to get in to see my GP because I don't think I need the statins anymore, to be honest. I'm not worried about my cholesterol. It's well within it's within normal on towards the higher end. So like I'm I'm not sure where you're from. I live in England. I'm Canadian, but we live in England. We've been here for 13 years. And so there's this thing where when you sign up with a doctor's office with the surgery, you can actually request to be set up for electronic access, which means you can go online and you can order your own repeat prescriptions. You cannot make appointments with doctors online. You still have to wait on the phone and try to get in that way, unless it's for an annual checkup or something like that. But if you ask for full access, you can actually see every single report that's on electronic file that's ever been made about you. Because everything is supposed to be, oh, okay. So I don't know if they do this in the US, but I can actually get access and I can see every single test result if I want to. So, I'm one of those people where I want to see copies of all the results, all the blood work and everything, because for 2 years before, so from 2018 to 2020, I could tell by my TSH and my T4 levels that I was definitely not at an optimal level. And I kept trying to explain to my doctor, look, I think you need to really do better testing because based on what's coming back, it's at the very low end. Like my T4 levels at one point were abnormally low. They weren't even on it. They didn't even make the chart because there were so few of them. And that was a sign that, hey, my thyroid is not functioning optimally. Like it's underperforming. And they just said, no, no, no. We still consider that within normal because your TSH levels seem to be, even if they're at the very bottom end, they're just barely on, they're barely on the level. So no, we're not going to do that. And then of course, October 2019, I was phoned by the office saying, you need to come in. Okay, what's wrong? Well, your LDL levels have shot up. Oh, weird. I haven't changed my diet. You sure? Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to put you on statins. Okay, great. Then what? No, that's it. We'll just put you on statins. No, don't eat this. Try to eat that, which I get now because doctors maybe spend one rotation learning about nutrition, if that. And I don't even know if they do that here in the UK. That might even be just a US and Canadian thing. So here am I being told, well, you got to take these statins because your LDL is way too high. So clearly they haven't gotten the latest information that at least in the US, the American Heart Association has, which is LDL is not necessarily an indicator of health concerns. If it's high, it's you need to be more concerned if the triglycerides are way high. That's where the concern comes in, and that's what should be looked at. They didn't look at that, right? So they put me on statins. Fine. I was sent to see a lipid specialist in the next town over from where I live. A few months after that, great. Had to wait another 2 months for the results to come through. So that was March 20th of 2020. And saw the specialist. She said, right, here's what's going on. The statins have brought your LDL down, but your triglycerides are way too high. You are in the beginning stages of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We need to get this under control. You need to be mindful to not eat too many sweet things, which I wasn't eating an excessive amount of at that point. She goes, and you also need to cut out fruit, like maybe 1 or 2 pieces per day maximum, because that's the fructose in the fruit is what's causing the problem for your liver right now because of all the other stuff I was eating, of course. So I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. Then what? She goes, oh, and by the way, yes, you have hypothyroidism. Your thyroid is underacting. It's underperforming. Your metabolism is not functioning properly. And these things all work together. I'm like, really? really? She goes, yes, I'm going to prescribe you a hormone replacement medication to get that working, which should hopefully help your metabolism readjust and should hopefully help with how your liver's functioning and so on if you cut back on the fruit and avoid sweets as much as you possibly can, like almost never have any. And I thought, oh, okay. So I was right for 2 years. I knew this based on my lab results, but the doctors wouldn't listen to me. So that was a little bit of vindication. Um, so we'll see what happens. I'm due for an annual review in a few months. And hopefully at that point, I'll be able to at least come off the statins. I don't know that they're doing me any good at this point anyways. Everything else is down because of changing my diet. So yeah. So that was that journey. And then 3 days later, it was announced on the BBC that the UK wide, we were all going into a lockdown for COVID. So at least I got that information before that happened, but like 3 days after the fact, it's like, holy crap, what else is coming? Like, really? Come on. Now, of course, like most of us, I did takeaways. I decided that I didn't care if there were some foods that I knew would cause me issues. I was willing to suffer the consequences because I was going to eat what I wanted to eat, and that was that. And we did a lot of takeout, like a lot of us, right? We didn't, groceries were you order ahead and pick them up, so click and collect. And at that point in life, there was this unbelievable amount of stress because holy crap, what if you got this COVID thing? You might die, right? And so there was this constant stress, which, as you will know, 19 Stony 64, you will know that the more stress you have, the worse your fibromyalgia can be. And that I was no exception. So here I was in this constant fog in the middle of a pandemic with weight going on. I was not eating a lot. I wasn't. However, I didn't know any better. I was eating things like I was eating toast with margarine, peanut butter, and jam on it. Ugh, all of that. Horrible, horrible stuff. And I had no idea. I thought if I only eat once or twice a day, if I drink 5 or 6 cups of coffee, if I make sure I don't eat a whole lot, I'll be fine. Having no idea that everything I was eating was making my overall health worse. And of course, the more weight I put on, the more stress was on my joints, the more stress went on my SI joint, the more my lower back hurt, the more everything else hurt. And it was just this cycle that wouldn't stop, that refused to stop. And I remember as we were getting closer to summer and as we approached the end of May, yeah, my husband and I both were like, yeah, we put on a little bit of weight. And I thought, okay, yes, we have. Let's get healthy. And like I said, paleo was a disaster, a horrible idea on my part. But I saw all these people saying how, their symptoms are gone and the IBS cleared up. And yes, they lost weight, but yes, they lost fat and all this other stuff. And I thought, you know what? I need to try this. I actually had, fatty liver disease. Exactly. Wow. Wow. That's crazy that we have so much in common. I don't know. Wow. That's just amazing. To me, that's a God moment. Not sure if you are a believer or not. And if you're not, that's totally fine. Obviously, I'm a firm believer in God. That is a God moment because to actually connect with somebody who's been through the exact same experience, that it just randomly happened, I think not. But as I went to keto, I realized I would have to get rid of the last of the vegetables because they were not helping. And I knew that they were inflammatory for arthritis. They were inflammatory for fibromyalgia, that being potatoes and carrots, which I love. They're so inflammatory. So I had to cut those out. And that I think, was almost harder than cutting out the processed sugar and crap. Oh, there we go, Christian brother. Amen, bro. That's awesome. So for me, when I cut that stuff out, I thought, I'm only eating meat and eggs. So what is that? Like, what is that called? I didn't even really know what that was until I found carnivore. So by the time I was into being full carnivore, um, my brain fog was completely gone. Completely gone. I got my brain back, and that was unbelievable. And and so I carried on doing that. And at the same time, when my brain fog lifted, I was able to reconnect with God and get back to my faith. Because before that, and I've shared this in other live streams, but before that, it's not that my faith was gone. I think of it as being like a little tiny flicker of a flame, like you get in like a tea light candle when it's almost out. That's about where it was. When my brain fog lifted and I was able to get back to God and reconnect and renew my faith, oh my goodness. Now it's like this blazing flame, like you'd see in the pilot light of a furnace or a boiler. And the only way that's going out is if you cut off the gas, or, in this case, when your physical life ends, right? That is a blessing I get from God. And for me, my challenge wasn't usually that I had to sleep all the time. Yes, exactly. The sun was shining. And for me, it was like this whole amazing thing connecting with God as a brain fog lifted. And I didn't even realize initially that I was even losing weight because you get trapped in that mind for so long. The body catches up later, right? And so for me, it was like, okay, this is great. I needed God because when I was first losing weight, I wasn't quite back with faith fully. And I was starting to fall back into some of my old thinking habits and patterns that I had when I was bulimic or when I was restricting and binging and purging. And none of those were healthy. And those were becoming my idols again. And I realized, you know what? I'm trying to do this all by my strength. And I can't. I cannot do this on my own strength. I need God. And I think even that day, I just stopped and I prayed. And oh my goodness, it felt amazing because the fog was gone, but everything else got better. And I thought, this is fantastic. If nothing else gets better, that's okay because I've got God and this is absolutely amazing. So I found new joy, refreshed faith, and that was the greatest gift. Secondary to that was, of course, getting my brain back. In order for that to happen, I said to one of the elders' wives at our church was, God led me to find keto and carnivore to heal my brain fog and clear my mind so that I could find my way back to Him. And I believe that that is true. And for anybody there out there who maybe isn't a believer in the Christian God, maybe you believe in, the God of Buddha or the Jewish father, or you believe in the gods of the Hindu faith, or nothing at all. Maybe you believe in Mother Nature. But I think the key for me was realizing I cannot do this by myself. I needed to have something greater to believe in and to turn to and to trust in. And now for me, that is God, as in the God of Jesus. As they say in the 12-step programs, if you need to find the God of your own understanding, of whatever that might be, do that. Whatever's your higher power. For me, my higher power is the higher power. But I was so overwhelmed with gratitude and joy for finding physical healing so I would get mental and spiritual healing, especially because by the time that happened, over in England at least, we were getting ready to go into our second lockdown. And I knew that I was going to have that or it wasn't going to work. And there were times where I started to feel like, well, but I still take my antidepressants and I'm still on my pain medications and I still take this and that. And shouldn't I be medication free and all this sort of thing because everyone else seems to be. And I realized, wait a minute, but that's them. Maybe they were never taking the amount that I did. I still have the back injury. I still have the chronic pain. I still have the inflammation and the fibro and all of it. It has not disappeared. It is chronic. It is probably never going to go away completely. However, it is far better managed. And I find that my pain medication works effectively. Whereas before, I was at a point where it felt like, what's the point of the medication? It doesn't feel like it's doing anything anymore. And now it feels like, okay, I understand our bodies adapt and, it maybe isn't as effective as when I first started it, but it's better than not having it. And I've learned that the hard way because I had a couple times where I didn't reorder my medications in time and I was a couple of days without pain meds and it was awful. I got a sense of and a feeling of what it might be like to be dope sick. I was out of gabapentin, which is the nerve blocker they give to help with the fibro pain. I had plenty of the cocodamol, which basically the equivalent would be Tylenol 3 with codeine, or yeah, I was going to say Advil, but I think Advil is an ibuprofen, or like maximum strength aspirin with codeine. If you're in North America, that's that one. And so I was out of the gabapentin for a day, and it was not fun. It was horrible. I felt awful. I felt nauseous all day. When I was finally able to get the prescription from the pharmacy the next morning, as soon as I took the first dose, I was like, okay, wow, I feel better. Also, as a side note, anybody who wants to try to come off of medication, and that's your call, obviously, please don't do it cold turkey. Please, please don't. Please do not. Please work with your medical practitioner, whether it's a nurse practitioner, whether it's a doctor, some sort of other specialist, a rheumatologist, whatever it is, please work with somebody to help you come off easy, gently, and slowly. Because if you end up going cold turkey, and I only did it for like 48 hours, it was awful. Okay. It's not good for your body at all. So please, please don't, if that's what you choose to do. But I thought, part of me is worried. Part of me thinks, well, if I take out all the pain medications, I'm going to feel like crap. Yeah, I probably would. And they're helping. The way I see it, if it's helping, who says you have to get rid of it? Nobody, right? The way I look at it, God created the people who invented these medications for a reason, So I have no problem with taking a medication if there is an actual reason for it. Professor Sarah Pugh, again, she's done a couple of interviews with Bart Kay, and she's fantastic, very knowledgeable. And when she talks about medications for mental health or mental illness, whether it's something that we appear to be born with, like ADHD, whether it's something we develop, like depression or anxiety, she has said herself that she is not opposed to people taking medication for that if it's necessary, if other things have not helped. So that's kind of where I stand on it. My son, who's 19, almost 20, he was diagnosed with ADHD at 18. He does not take medication for it. He finds that set routines and his work every day and following a good diet and getting plenty of sleep is more than enough. Okay. Oh, so you've been. Well, that's fantastic. I'm hoping that I will be able to gradually come off the medications, simply because the side effects are not overly desired. So yeah, I'm on sertraline, 200 milligrams. I do 2,300 milligrams of gabapentin spread throughout the day. So that's that. And then I take, so the cocodamol is 30 milligrams of codeine, 500 milligrams of the paracetamol, which is comparable to Tylenol, in a tablet. And I take 2 of those at a time, 4 times a day. But I am starting to slowly wean myself. I'm sort of spacing it out to see if I can go a little bit longer between my scheduled dosages just to see how I feel. And then I'm hoping to cut that back a bit. So I'm hopeful that I won't need to take those meds anymore. For me, so sorry, wandering off there a little bit. Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? That's why they warn people, if you're, take antibiotics only if you absolutely necessarily have to. Why? Because your body adapts and they become less effective. And I think all medication is probably the same. It works. Like if I cut it out now, no, couldn't do it. I'd be so sick. I would be so sick from withdrawal. It wouldn't be worth it. But I am hoping to eventually come off at least most of, if not all of the medications. That's the plan. But I also had to realize that, you know what? It took me a few years to end up on all these medications because it took a few years to get everything diagnosed. I can't expect to just start eating carnivore and then all of a sudden, that's it, I quit and just stop everything out all at once, right? I have to do it very slowly. I would imagine, Sally Norton talks about oxalates that you get in a lot of foods, especially in plants, primarily, and how if your body has this buildup of them over the years, you do not want to cut everything out immediately necessarily because you don't want to have it all dump out of your body. You can get weird like skin reactions and issues with sleep and just all sorts of stuff. So you want to do it very carefully, very slowly. And I think it's got to be the same thing with medication. I mean, whether you put illicit drugs in your body or say a prescription, it will stay in the system for quite a while, right? I've been told. So yeah, eventually I would like to reach a point where I don't need to take any of that. That is the goal. That's what I'm hoping for. What I found really helped just with my overall sleeping habits and my tiredness was I forced myself. I have these like lenses that clip on over these ones. And I look ridiculous. I do. I look ridiculous. But what I do is after I eat, so after 6 o'clock, so after we've had dinner, I automatically put those on. Even if I'm not reading my Kindle, even if I'm just got the TV on in the background, I put those on to cut back on the blue light. And what I found was that it helped settle my brain at nighttime. And I always make sure the room is kept dark all day, nice and cool, all those sorts of things. But what helps the most is when I've got the blue blockers on, even if I'm just like listening to music through the television, I find it really helps and it keeps away the headaches I used to get at night. The other thing is sometimes I think I'm tired, but I'm not super tired. I don't know if you guys know what that feels like. It's almost like you're so tired, you're wired, right? So I always put on the blue blockers, regardless of what I'm doing in the evening. So it's not like I'm going to sit up and read by candlelight because that's just bad for your eyes. But I put on the blue blockers, and then I make myself go to bed by 10 o'clock. Sometimes I don't even feel super tired. And my husband might be like, oh, hey, babe, I'm back early from poker and let's watch something. It's like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm tired. It's 10. Plus the dogs always want out around 4 o'clock. And I'm the one who hears them. So no, I'm going to bed. So I will go into the room. I put the phone on the side table, like not right beside me, but not far away, which may or may not be good. I don't know. Doesn't seem to bother me. And then I put on I'll play something through my phone really quietly, like fireplace crackling or a sound of a blizzard in the background, or it might be white noise or pink noise. And guaranteed that always helps me fall asleep at night. And the reason why I do that is if I get myself to bed early enough, then when I get up to let the dogs out, I find it's not too bad. They get out, they do their thing. I just have to tell them bedtime, I turn the lights off, and then I can go back to sleep for a couple more hours. When I do get up, usually between 6:30 and 7, I'm relatively awake. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to force, you're almost, for me at least, I had to force my body to sleep earlier so I would be okay if I woke up earlier. And it does give me overall energy, and absolutely eating the meat has helped. So a carnivorous way of eating has helped me, because when I was full of carbs and sugar and processed crap, I slept like crap. I felt like crap. And so I would be exhausted all day long. Now, the one thing I would say is that I do not get up every single morning bouncy and full of energy like I feel right now. In fact, many mornings I'll get up because I know that I am not going to be able to fall back asleep. I've got the house to myself because it's quiet. It's just me and the dogs. I'll feed them. I'll spend time in prayer. I'll read my Bible, whatever, catch up on emails or watch YouTube, whatever it is. I'll be up. But often I will feel, I think we must be long lost siblings. You know what? I think you might be right. There you go. What I find though is if I sit for too long, and we have our sofas are lazy boys, so the seats at the end have automatic footrests that go up. So I find even if I thought I was awake, if I get too relaxed and I put like nature sounds in the background, like bird song or whatever, that's it. That's me done. I'll pass out and then wake up another 3 hours later. So I try not, I'm learning to not feel guilty. I'm learning to accept that my body is trying to tell me it needs rest. Um, Now, I have a, in spite of the fact that we've been doing this live stream for a while, I typically have a really hard time being still. I will constantly be, oh, let's fold laundry, or I've got to start the dishwasher, or hey, I'll go check on dinner, or who wants a drink from the kitchen, or I'll let the dogs out. I have a very hard time settling. Once I settle, I'm fine. I can sleep through pretty much anything. But for me, I always feel guilty for sitting still. And I think it goes back to the fact that when I injured my back, I still worked for about a year, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. I was in so much pain. I could not sit at a desk and work any longer. And I just felt so much guilt for that happening, that I felt like, well, I can do stuff around the house and I'll do this and I'll do that. And meanwhile, not the things I should be doing to begin with, because I was told I will always be at a higher risk of having another disc prolapse if I am not careful. So much fun to look forward to. So, as far as sleeping for long periods of the time, don't know. I do think it means, for some reason, your body is saying, I need rest. I always felt I was always falling asleep on the sofa throughout the day as well. And a lot of that was because of all the processed crap in my body. You get those sugar rushes and then those massive crashes, being a carb eater. So for me, when I started to change what I ate, I did start to have a lot more energy. And there'll be days where, especially if it's rainy out and it's a gloomy day, and I'll go sit on the sofa and I might have been up all day, sorting out laundry, emptying the dishwasher, whatever. But if I sit down and put my feet up, like literally, I'll just pass out. So I don't know. It could be the fact of I'm probably trying to do too much, which is Those of you with fibro know, never a good idea, but it's really hard because you feel so amazing one day. You're like, I can do everything. And then you can't. So I try to daily get out in my electric wheelchair. I used to have to use crutches everywhere through the house. I don't need to do that anymore. I can walk through the house without too much pain, but I cannot walk for very far. And so we might be 5 minutes from town, but I have to go in my electric wheelchair during the day. Because again, my husband works full time and our son is off doing his own thing. So that's fine. But I make a point of getting outdoors every day. Sometimes it's just the distance between our house. We have a full garage that's sort of beside the house, but separate. So if I have to go outside to get stuff out of the garage for whatever reason, then I get outside. In the summer, or even in the spring, it's the UK. Spring comes the second week of February usually for a week, and then we see it again briefly in May, and then we get summer for a month typically. But once it's above, 15 degrees, I spend as much time outside as I possibly can, because why not? You get out in the sun, you get out in the vitamin D and all that kind of stuff. And that helps with having more energy. But that doesn't mean I'm not tired sometimes. That doesn't mean I don't feel exhausted at times. And I know that some people with fibro maybe have a bit less pain, but they have exhaustion all the time. So I don't know. I mean, perhaps blue blockers, trying to get to sleep earlier, keeping the room dark, having nature sounds or something like that to help you fall off to sleep, trying to sleep through the night. That might help. I don't know. When I get up, it's like, yeah, I'm up, and I'll sit for a bit. And if I start to feel my eyes drifting close, I let them. My husband has often had to take naps through the day. He also had COVID twice. So, sorry, that's just my son talking.
I'm sure.
Yeah, what? I'm
so
just
what I want for dinner is
we're gonna order from German doner kebab. I'll do that in just a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Kebab with chips.
Yep. No worries.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. They do this amazing thing, the gym box, and all it is just well, there you go. It's a redhead. Get outside. Yeah, for me in the summertime, I spend most of my time literally. My husband bought me a sun lounger a couple of years ago, so I will go sit outside. I'll throw my baseball cap on at some point, but usually I'll go sit outside and just lay in the sun. I'll work up to it. Don't worry, I don't just fry myself nonstop. But yeah, I'm outdoors. We have a castle in town, so I'll often go down to the castle and sit by the flowers. Sometimes my husband will walk, I'll take my chair, and we'll bring our dogs with us, and we'll make an event out of it. But yeah, when the weather is a bit nicer, I will sit outside all the time, pretty much. Yeah. And to me, I thought that's actually progress. So I've been known to take a bit of a snooze in the sun. But I get all kitted out. So if I'm going to lay in the sun, I have a big beach umbrella and the lounge chair, and I make sure I, don't get too much of my face. And then that's it. I'm out there, and I've got a Bluetooth, and I've got my oldies hits, sometimes a bit of ABBA, a little bit of Kiss, whatever, a bit of Creator playing in the background, and I'll sit outside and read my Kindle. And there was a time where I could not even do that because it hurt too much to sit on a lounge chair. So I try to look at it as progress. I used to think, well, I should be perfectly better now because I'm eating meat. So what's the problem? And I just came to realize there isn't a problem. There's nothing wrong. This is just the level at which my body is trying to heal. And so I think the fact that I feel like I've got more energy, that my brain is returned, that I can actually get outside and enjoy sitting outside when the weather's nice. Fantastic. And in the meantime, I try to get into town every day. not for any particular reason. Sometimes I'll go get a coffee at Starbucks. Sometimes I'll just wander through town for a bit. If I have groceries, I'll pick a few things up here and there just to get out in the fresh air, just to get out of the four walls. For the vitamin D, which isn't as strong now as it would be in the warm weather. But, I think like most of us, after 2 years and some of being locked up in our homes, I try to get out as much as I can. I'm up by 6, and if my husband is busy, he's busy till about lunchtime, and he'll be like, "So, where are you going?" "Oh, I'm gonna go out." "Why?" "Well, because I want to. I need to." And he's starting to slowly understand the fact that, yeah, who knows? Who knows what the future will bring? I hope we never have another pandemic like we did. Who's to say? But if we do, then I want to get outside now while I can. That's kind of my approach to it. And to be honest, it was like +8 Celsius here today. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but for January, that's nice and warm. It's above freezing. And if that's as cold as it gets from now on, I'm not complaining. We have no snow where I live. There is in northern England, there is snow, or there was snow, but you know, we don't get that here. After spending almost my entire life, of course, being Canadian born and raised, and only being here 13 years, the rest of my life was spent in very snowy, cold, wintry conditions, and I'm done. I'm good. My younger son has that where he lives right now, where he's working. He loves it. Great. He can keep it. I'm fine. Plus, the wheelchair does not get through snow, so I would be stuck indoors anyways. That's me. So, um, I think something that has been said. Well, Bart K mentioned this in one of his videos where he said that there are various ways of approaching the carnivorous diet. There isn't just the carnivore diet. There are different ways of approaching it. For me, and this is just me, this is just what I do. This is what worked for me. And I gradually worked up to it. I didn't just start this cold turkey. I had to work up to eliminating things and then adding some stuff in. So what I eat that I find helps and nourishes me is fatty ground beef. So 20% fat beef, 20% fat, yeah, beef that is 20% fat. And I mix it with a little bit that's 23% fat. And that eventually I'm going to go over to fully 23% fat because just the higher fat is very helpful for me. Going through perimenopause and the way the hormones are changing, just higher fat seems to be help stabilize the moods and changes with my skin and hair and all that kind of garbage, right? Not garbage, but all that hoo-ha. So fatty ground beef, beef mince, as we say here, fried in the pan, a little bit of salt to taste, 2 egg yolks, and then I fry up some bacon separately, break it into pieces, sprinkle it on top of the beef like a topping, and that's what I eat. So that's what I like to have for breakfast, and that's what I eat generally for dinner, although tonight we're going to be getting doner kebabs. I'm going to get the meat. My son's going to get the doner. Okay. Wow. You know what? That is kind of creepy here. You're so welcome. Welcome back anytime. Thanks for being here today. It was so cool hearing from somebody who's been through literally the exact same things that I have. Tonight, my goal is simply to relax and maybe watch a movie on Netflix, not too late at night. Thank you so much for being here. So that's what I like to eat. That's what works for me. In the meantime, I'm going to close out with my theme song, if you will, inspired by, full credit to Professor Bart K. This was based on one that he does, but I call mine mince and yolks. His is about steak and eggs. Okay. Mince and yolks and mince and yolks. That's what I like to eat. And bacon. Yolks and mince and yolks and mince. That's what I really enjoy. And bacon. All right, guys. So glad you guys are here for this live stream. This was so much fun. I almost didn't come on. I was feeling kind of tired, but I thought, you know what? No, nope. Let's get on. Let's chat. And there we go. 19 Stony 64 was here, and we were able to talk about sharing some of the exact same things. So thank you so much, guys. Have yourselves a great evening or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, or even morning. Thumbs up as well. Thanks so much, you guys. I hope to be back tomorrow. Actually, yes, I will be back tomorrow. I will have literally the house to myself, me and the dogs, and we'll talk some more. I'll see what comes up to mind for tomorrow's topic. Thank you for being here. Feel free to share this with anybody. This is being recorded, so I'll have it saved on my live stream tab on my channel. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Always wonderful to hear from you. Have a great day. See you in the next one. Bye for now.